During a typical 6 to 8 hours of sleep, the human body settles into a rigid state of stasis. Without movement to pump hydration through our systems, the connective fascial tissues beneath the skin become dry and tight. At the same time, the horizontal spinal column decompresses, but it loses the vital fluid dynamics that keep the vertebrae flexible. Rolling straight out of bed and directly into the rush of a morning commute shocks this dormant biology. Skipping a physical transition traps the shallow, restricted breathing patterns of sleep in the chest, allowing nocturnal stiffness to harden into daytime tension. Opening your eyes is merely the neurological trigger of morning. Overcoming the deep physical inertia of sleep requires a deliberate mechanical intervention. This sequence serves as a precise kinetic catalyst, designed to safely boot up the nervous system through low-intensity movement. The practice prioritizes neurological activation over traditional athletic exertion. It functions as a targeted reset for the autonomic nervous system. The routine follows a strict architectural progression. It begins flat on the floor, gradually shifting the center of gravity upward through seated and kneeling postures, before finally asking the body to bear its own weight standing up. By pacing this physical climb, gentle movement acts as an essential bridge. It carries the body from a state of dormant survival to active, waking readiness. The sequence anchors itself entirely on the ground. This floor-bound alignment provides a rigid external reference point, allowing the skeleton to settle evenly. From this supported position, the primary focus shifts to respiration. Drawing air slowly in through the nose forces the breath deep into the lower abdomen, expanding the belly outward rather than the upper chest. This directional breath alters the body's geometry. Horizontal ribcage expansion pushes the lumbar spine flat, correcting sleeping posture. This also acts as a chemical switch. Expanding lungs stimulate the vagus nerve, sending parasympathetic signals that lower heart rate and calm the brain. With the nervous system physically pacified, the mind follows. Setting a clear, positive intention in this calm state cuts directly through residual sleep fog. Before the human frame can handle the mechanical stress of standing, it must first establish absolute control over its own respiratory engine. The sequence then moves upward onto all fours. In this tabletop position, the arms and legs act as structural pillars, shifting the body's entire center of gravity directly onto the spine. From here, the back undergoes a series of controlled flexions and rotations. The spine arches and rounds in the cat-cow motion, while threading the needle forces a deep lateral twist through the torso. These movements create a vacuum effect between the vertebrae. This draws fluid back into the compressed intervertebral discs, a process known as spinal lubrication. The twisting motions further isolate the upper back. Rotating the shoulder toward the floor manually stretches out the tight, restricted muscle fibers that knot up overnight between the shoulder blades. Relieving pressure along the spinal column physically clears the pathways of the central nervous system, preparing the brain to safely coordinate complex motor functions. Articulating each vertebra reduces physical interference along the spinal cord, improving the speed and clarity of neural signaling from the brain to the limbs. With the spine mobilized, the sequence demands gravity. The transition upward into standing postures ignites the heat-building dynamic phase of the morning practice. Positions like downward-facing dog and low-grounded lunges place tension on the lower body. They forcefully open the front of the hip flexors and stretch the long, dense hamstrings at the back of the legs. This illustrates the internal response to that stretch. Rapid vascular dilation pumps oxygenated blood into massive leg and shoulder muscle groups. This flood activates the kinetic chain. Force from pressing the feet is efficiently linked upward through the calves, hips, spine, and arms. In minutes, the cellular environment shifts. The limbs are flooded with oxygen, and the nervous system is primed for immediate motor response. The sequence deliberately closes by returning to the floor. Settling into a final seated position, the body takes complete stillness to process the mechanical shifts. The dry, locked fascia from an hour earlier is now supple and hydrated. The shallow, trapped chest breathing is replaced by deep, rhythmic oxygen pulls into the lower abdomen. The body achieves a state of structural alignment. The heart rate is balanced, while the central nervous system remains highly activated, yet entirely composed. Investing 15 minutes into this mechanical progression yields a high return. It constructs a resilient physical foundation capable of supporting the mechanical and mental stress of the day. The intense biological gravity of sleep has been entirely broken. This sequence systematically prepares the human frame for the day ahead, establishing the biological readiness required to face the world.